This movie's so good! This movie's so good! This movie's so good!
What did you think of Hereditary? Tag us in your Stardust reaction.
This is not a Stardust sponsored video, people. Just wanted to throw that in there, because that took 10 minutes to put together. Yeah, so we watched Hereditary at a special screening, and we're getting this up at a time when you guys have had a chance to see it already.
Yeah.
Because that's the way we roll. This movie was one unique experience at the theaters.
This is a mindful.
I think if you've seen the trailers, it lives up to the trailers. There's a couple of solid moments in there where the audience was, there's one very specific moment too, where the whole crowd just, oh, my hands went up in the air.
Yeah, my jaw dropped a mile and I didn't put it back up for like 3 straight minutes.
Not even like a disgusting thing. I don't want to give it away, but it's not like, oh, this is gory. It's just
wrenching.
Yeah, there's an effect about this film. The setup of this movie, Toni Collette has a family, daughter named Charlie, son named Peter, kid from Jumanji. Husband, who was showing treatment, Gabriel Byrne. They actually produced this movie, Gabriel Byrne and Toni Collette. The movie starts off where Toni Collette's mother has passed away. She's someone who's dealt with death before. Then from there, things just kind of go weird. Yeah. I kind of viewed this movie in a sense, it's not shot like a 70s horror film. In the tone and style, I you know, and it's not someone who's popular to talk about on the internet, but Roman Polanski, I did kind of compare some of this to Rosemary's Baby. If you saw the trailer for Mother and you thought that was like Rosemary's Baby, the movie's not. This movie feels more like Rosemary's Baby to me than Mother did.
Spiritually, at the very least.
Yeah, because it's a descent into madness. This film. Like, it's, as you put it, it's very deliberately paced. It starts off really slow and eerie. It starts off on a dour of a tone, and then it just gets more dreadful as it keeps going.
Yeah, as the situation worsens and the tensions heighten, and you do have this kind of movie that shapes up to be part psychological horror and then, you know, really overt.
It's a hard movie to go into without giving stuff away, and one thing I love about the trailers, like, there's a couple of things that I thought the trailers did give away in like brief flashes. Other than that, there's so much context to the movie that the trailers don't go into that I wouldn't want to like really reveal much. This is a very tense and uncomfortable experience. I feel like this movie has a pretty clear midpoint. The first half, it feels like a very metaphorical film.
Definitely. I mean, it starts you out feeling almost like a type of movie.
Yeah, it's about like the horrors of grief.
Metaphor. All these horrific things are stemming from this theme.
And it's not like a ghost story. Babadook has its elements that are metaphors for grief as well, but this is done in a completely different kind of execution. It's within several members of a family, and you think they're all just falling apart because the horrors of the emotions of grief.
Yeah, and the director even said this is partly based on, you know, just like a real time that we've all experienced where just things keep going wrong and you start to believe you're cursed. The curse element sort of starts to play in harder as the movie goes along.
And then the last half, you start to get some more information, things that you expect from the trailer that hint at everyday audience horror movie fans.
Not popcorn.
Yeah, in the sense that it's a film, you get a lot of great things in there. The cinematography is beyond excellent.
A lot of really steady motion, a lot of really framed, composed shots.
Just from the opening shot of this movie, too, you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
The opening shot.
One thing I also noticed is the way they use visual transitions and visual motifs in this movie is like top notch. Because they'll have a tilt that rests on something or a pan that comes to rest on something, and then a few scenes later, that thing will come back in a significant way, and that happens throughout the movie. And just as a visual piece, it is really expertly crafted.
Part of the transitions is to deal with how great the sound design is.
Yeah, you got a lot of pulsing, sort of, again, ominous tones.
There's this one consistent ominous tone that plays through a lot of the film.
Yeah, this like weird sub bass.
This is writing and directing feature debut by Ari Aster, and you would not suspect that this is his first time.
No, it's so assured.
Yeah.
It's so solid.
Like, he's done short films, but for a feature that's over 2 hours long, I'm surprised it's a guy's first film.
Yeah, serious one. I guess this is based on shorts that kind of inspired this movie too. Yeah. So I mean, he knows this material inside and out. You can tell.
How I was phrasing it was, I feel like it's a fine script. I don't think it's an amazing script. I feel like it's a fine script. The things that make this movie in the great territory, the technical execution of its sound design, its editing, its cinematography, amazing performances.
Amazing.
I would be very bummed if Toni Collette was not recognized at all for her performance here. If she was nominated for The Sixth Sense, she should be nominated for this.
Well, I'm watching.
Not putting her down in The Sixth Sense. I'm just saying, like, that's a horror movie. This is also a horror movie with a much more demanding performance.
Well, and she leads this thing like it's nobody's business, and she sells everything they have her do, because her character arguably goes through the most different iterations and forms. And Toni Collette really is like the pinnacle of this movie's greatness.
Name an emotion, she puts it on display in this movie. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where it's not so much about the dialogue or, you know, hugely plotty moments. A lot of it, you're just peering in on these people's lives.
Yeah.
It's very slice of life in that way.
I think the surprise performer for me, maybe because I just don't really know his work, is Alex Wolff. For him to be in such a serious role and a very demanding role, and there's specific plot points that deal heavily with his character, because the trailer doesn't really make it seem like he's utilized in it, but he's more of a supporting character than Gabriel Byrne is in this movie.
He's like the second lead as far as I'm concerned.
He's the character where you might actually have the most issues with, but he wins you over with how great of a performance he has.
Well, and in a way, you might sympathize with him in a totally different way than you would with Toni Collette. There are so many dimensions going on in these performances, and like the whole cast overall. I mean, you also got Gabriel Byrne, you got Ann Dowd, Millie Shapiro, who plays Charlie, the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone does a really great job, elevating the script and, really bringing this to horrific life.
What I would say to talk about why I love this film, this is a film experience. It is one of those films where I'm like, you will appreciate this more in the theaters or when you watch it at home with the lights off.
And it is one of those movies, too, that will germinate in your mind the more time you sit with it.
Yeah, it's a film to dissect. It's one of those things with, like, little details throughout that anytime I, like, slightly wasn't paying attention, I kind of worried.
Pay attention. And don't be married to any one set of expectations, because you might miss details you wouldn't have been looking for otherwise.
I find that there's a lot of very uncomfortable moments, and like there's like I feel like the first half is just like flat out uncomfortable.
Very disquieting, uncomfortable film.
Yeah,
there's almost no levity in this movie.
It's eerie. I was never exactly terrified. I know some people are. It's a different kind of scare for
I wasn't
me.
Scared, but I was horrified quite a bit. Like, I think it is one of those movies that truly translates the horrific, not necessarily the aggressive. There are parts, but the horrific, truly.
And it's not like a fun horror movie by any capacity.
There are a couple moments of pitch black humor, but other than that, it's pretty ominous the entire time.
And then when the movie was done, we were with a small group of people. More supernatural elements started coming into play.
That's when the movie really goes crazy.
Yeah, the movie starts to go really, especially by the finale. It just goes nuts.
It is a build over time. As we descend, we are also building up in the pace and the tone.
So this is not the movie for that we didn't show up to the theater with, and we don't really know these people, and a couple of them are flat out strangers. Who? The one spot that was debated, because we were all like, yeah, it's great. The one spot that's debated is the finale of the film.
The very end,
I'm talking about the very end.
Yeah, like the last 10-ish minutes.
And we're going to tell you what it is right now.
Basically.
And then even when the movie was done, it's like you can't help but talk about the end. One way to take it is in a very literal way. Another way to take it's a very metaphorical way. If you take it literal, it's like you kind of hate it. If you take it metaphorical, it kind of makes you like question other things. It's an ending that's to be debated, and I think we're both on the same page about this. I'm curious to see if I watch it a second time, if I'm like, oh no, the ending's perfect.
I definitely think that this is a movie that will be a smoother watch the second time, because for me also, it's like having one idea in my head and having one idea of what I'm supposed to be focusing on or looking for the first half of the movie. There are things you might not pick up, or there are things that might cause you to be taken aback when the second half of the film kicks in, and especially towards the finale kicks in. I guess without giving too much away, there are sort of two styles, two approaches to a horror film that I kind of saw working in this, like we touched on earlier, the sort of more metaphorical, psychological side, and then the very literal, very unsettling side. And depending on how you're focusing on this movie, depending on what you're looking for from it, the blend of that might or might not coalesce for you. And that's the only thing I would, I guess, caution anybody about with this movie. It's like everything is expert, and it's just where it all ends up. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play to everybody.
I think the biggest thrills come from the last half. And I love the last half. I do. I prefer the first half, even though it's not as thrilling and it requires a much more patient viewing experience.
Yeah.
In terms of what they were doing with storytelling is what I preferred. I feel like the storytelling, its strength is not as present, yet the stuff you showed up for is really great in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. It's an odd movie because it gives you kind of everything you were wanting and maybe expecting in a way that's completely disconcerting. Yeah. It's not like it's just, oh, that's what I expected. But yeah, it ends up in an odd place.
By the time you even get to the end of the movie, even though that caused a lot of debate, and there were some people we were with who were just like, I loved it, just that last few minutes, I hate it. Like, there are people who really felt that, who were like, I hate that ending, you know? Yeah. Beyond that, though, I wouldn't diminish this from saying it's not a 5 out of 5 stars, because on an execution level and an experience level, you can't deny the film that. Like, in terms of going to the theater, you know you're showing up for a creepy, unsettling horror film, and you get just that and more. So I would definitely be like, yeah, this is a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, and again, it might get smoother for you the second time you see it, or just, if you're looking for something different going in. And I feel like having a divisive coda, a divisive ending, actually just kind of strengthens my appreciation of this movie, because it definitely goes for it, and it shows me some things that are horrifying in a way that I haven't seen in a while. Even sitting here now, it's like we saw this last night, and I'm already feeling different things about the ending, thinking back in different ways than I was, right when we'd walked out of the movie or whatever.
All right, guys. Well, did you see Hereditary? Did it live up to the hype? Because the film has amazing reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm wondering right now if it's going to be one of those 40% audience score, 90% Rotten Tomatoes.
Are you more satisfied than it comes at night? Another A24 joint.
You guys can subscribe to the Reject Nation. Click that notification bell, because subscribe buttons are pretty much broken. You can check us out on Patreon. Full-length TV show reactions, weekly Q&As. Would love to have you become a Patronaject today.